This is a true story in my life.
The rain had been falling since dawn. A slow, steady whisper across the windows of a modest single-story house on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. It was the kind of morning meant for sleeping in, curling up with a cup of coffee and the soft rustle of weekend paper. But in the Brooks household, no one had slept. Emily Brooks sat on the floor of her living room, cradling her 9-month-old son, Noah, in trembling arms. His body was hot, his cheeks sunken. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. The bottle lay half full on the rug beside them, milk untouched. "Come on, baby," she whispered, rocking gently. Please drink." But Noah didn't open his mouth. His head rolled weakly against her collarbone. Emily's tears fell soundlessly. She glanced at the canister on the table, sleek, silver, and expensive. NutriPure Advance, enhanced with organic cordyceps, DHA, and Immunity Boost Complex. Manufactured by VitaNova Health Corporation, a rising darling in the clean nutrition space. Emily and her husband, Marcus, had switched to it 3 months ago after seeing rave reviews online. Instagram moms, wellness influencers, a pediatrician endorsement from some verified profile. Because your child deserves the purest start. They believed it. They paid $299 a month for it. And now, Noah was fading in her arms. They rushed him to Mercy Children's Hospital. The ER team worked fast, IVs, monitors, oxygen. Emily and Marcus stood frozen in the corner, helpless as masked professionals moved around their son like ghosts. 2 hours later, a doctor stepped into the hallway, removing his gloves. He didn't need to say it. Emily collapsed. "I'm sorry. There was nothing more we could do." The cause of death, they said, was acute protein energy malnutrition and necrotizing enterocolitis, as if Noah had never been fed at all. Emily stared blankly. "That's not possible," she whispered. "We fed him the best." Meanwhile, 180 miles north in downtown Seattle, the lights were already on in a penthouse suite on the 39th floor of the VitaNova headquarters. Gregory Shaw, CEO, leaned back in his Italian leather chair, scanning quarterly reports on a tablet while sipping a $14 espresso. Margins were up. International markets expanding. NutriPure Advance was leading the pack. "Parents eat up the cordyceps stuff," he mused. "They want to believe they're buying magic." His assistant chuckled. "Should we greenlight the immunity ad campaign?" "Absolutely. Boost the clean science certified label across the board. No one reads the fine print." No one. 3 days later, Emily sat alone in Noah's nursery. She hadn't touched his crib. His toys still lay scattered on the floor. The canister of formula sat on the changing table, perfectly intact, glinting under the dim ceiling light. She picked it up, turned it over, and read the ingredients. Organic rice starch, modified plant protein, natural flavors, cordyceps extract, trace. It sounded impressive, but it felt empty. She opened it and smelled. No scent, no depth, just powder. Something snapped. She posted a video that night. Just 30 seconds. Noah's picture on the screen. Her voice, quiet and calm. "My son died last week. We fed him NutriPure Advance. We believed it would help him grow strong. He withered. He starved. And no one's giving us answers." She didn't cry. She didn't shout. But the internet listened. FDA agent David Ramirez was scrolling Reddit when the clip popped up on his feed. He paused, replayed it, watched again. Then he opened a folder buried deep in his drive. VitaNova, pending review. There had been whispers, mislabeled imports, tax discrepancies, unconfirmed factory audits. But now there was a baby. Now there was death. He picked up the phone. "This is Ramirez. Reopen the VitaNova case. Effective immediately." That night, Emily received a reply from VitaNova's customer service. "We regret your loss. All of our products are FDA compliant and meet industry standards. Please allow 3 to 5 business days for further correspondence. She stared at the screen. Then slowly, she typed her own response. No. I'm not waiting. You're going to hear me. The whole world will. FDA Criminal Investigations Division, Seattle Field Office. Tuesday, 8:47 a.m. Special Agent David Ramirez leaned over a cluster of monitors glowing with spreadsheets and shipment manifests. The hum of fluorescent lights above him barely registered. He was deep in what he called the rabbit hole. On screen were thousands of entries. Export codes. Ingredient breakdowns. Tax filings. Some matched. Most didn't. But one thing stood out. Vita Nova Health had been reporting 2 different product compositions for NutriPure Advance, one to the FDA. The other to its international partners. You're telling me the same formula had DHA and cordyceps in one document, and none in another? Asked his partner, Sophie Lang. Incredulously, David nodded grimly. Yep. On paper, it's miracle milk. In reality, it's flavored filler. He clicked open an email labeled confidential, eyes only. Attached was an anonymous tip, an Excel file labeled VNH internal_ledger_2024. And there it was. A tab labeled, real composition, for internal use only. Meanwhile, in Portland, Emily Brooks sat across from a lawyer at the Oregon Consumer Protection Bureau. You're not the only one, said the attorney. Jordan Green. We've had 5 similar complaints in the last month. All from parents using NutriPure. Emily's throat tightened. Are any of their babies? One is still hospitalized. Another's on a feeding tube. But no deaths. Yet. Jordan looked at her gently. You could help make this case real. Your testimony. Your records. They matter. Emily nodded. She didn't feel brave. She felt hollow. But she said it anyway. I'll do whatever it takes. Thursday, 9:12 a.m. Seattle. David Ramirez and Sophie Lang met with U.S. Attorney Carla Dorsey. A no-nonsense woman with silver-streaked hair and a stack of indictments always within arm's reach. We're seeing patterns across the board, David said. Shell companies. Falsified certifications. Revenue laundering through consulting contracts. He laid out a diagram on the table, a web of companies all linking back to Vita Nova Health Corporation. They list manufacturing partners in Canada and Taiwan. But we traced the shipments, they're coming from a third-party plant in Shenzhen, China. No inspection records. No lab verification. Just stamps. Carla raised an eyebrow. This isn't just corporate fraud. This is food safety terrorism. She stood. We go federal. Grand jury. Now. That same evening, Emily's video passed 1.2 million views. The comments section was ablaze. I fed my son this brand. Now I'm terrified. There has to be an investigation. This woman's bravery. Wow. Heartbroken for her. Tag the FDA. Tag Congress. Don't let this die. But one message stood out. It was a DM. No name. No picture. Just one line. Look into the Pacific Nutraceuticals shipping invoices. It's all there. J. Emily blinked. She didn't know what it meant. But she forwarded it to Jordan and David anyway. Friday morning. Vita Nova Health issued a press release. We remain committed to transparency and integrity in the nutraceutical space. All of our products are third-party verified and compliant with federal standards. Any claims to the contrary are being investigated. We encourage calm, respectful discourse as the truth unfolds. But the truth had already begun to unravel. Because that same morning, the FDA officially opened a Class 2 recall investigation on NutriPure Advance Lot number 423J1. And a sealed subpoena landed on Gregory Shaw's desk. At Mercy Children's Hospital, Emily revisited the pediatric ward, not for Noah, but for another mother whose infant had just been diagnosed with severe malabsorption. She brought her tea, sat quietly. The mother, Kayla Sanders, looked up and whispered, I saw your video. I thought I was the only one. Emily held her hand. You're not. And we're not done. U.S. District Court, Seattle, June 3, preliminary hearing. United States vs. Vitanova Health Corporation. The courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation. Journalists filled the gallery. Their notepads ready. Cameras forbidden but rolling outside. On the prosecution table, Assistant U.S. Attorney Carla Dorsey adjusted her blazer and whispered to her team, "Don't aim for emotion today. Aim for precision. Make it bleed through facts." Across the aisle, Gregory Shaw sat with the serenity of a man who had once been untouchable. He wore a navy suit, silk tie, and the practiced calm of someone used to boardroom wins, not courtroom wars. But behind his eyes, there was tension. For the first time in his career, the narrative was out of his hands. Outside the courtroom, Emily Brooks paced the hallway. She didn't want to be there. She hadn't wanted any of this. But every time she closed her eyes, she still saw Noah's empty crib. "You okay?" asked Jordan Green, her attorney. Emily didn't answer immediately. "They told me I couldn't even bury my son with answers. Today, I want the first one." Back inside, the prosecution presented its findings. David Ramirez took the stand. Calm, clear, unshakable. Vitanova reported one formula composition to regulators and a different one to its internal manufacturing partners. Their lab reports were falsified. Their third-party verifiers were companies they secretly owned. He clicked to the next slide, a map of Pacific Nutraceuticals. The supposed lab in Canada. It's a P.O. box in a strip mall. There's no lab. No staff. Just a mailbox. Whispers erupted in the courtroom. Gregory Shaw's defense team argued manufacturing variances, communication breakdowns, and industry-standard practices. But nothing could deflect what came next. A death certificate. Baby Noah Brooks. Cause, malnutrition linked to chronic nutritional deficiency. Carla Dorsey stood and said the words that cut deeper than any legal jargon. "A child in the United States of America died because a corporation chose profit over protein." After court adjourned for the day, reporters swarmed. Emily said nothing. But the cameras captured the moment she looked Shaw in the eyes as he walked past. No words. Just a stare sharp as shattered glass. He didn't meet it. 2 days later, internal emails from a whistleblower surfaced online. "Remove the cordyceps label if that region doesn't require it. Parents are paying for packaging, not content. Cost cut vitamins to 40%, no one's testing the micronutrient levels." The sender? Karen Flint, Vitanova's chief operating officer. The receiver? Gregory Shaw. His reply, "Understood. Keep the profit margin. Tell legal to prep the fallback statement." The public erupted. Social media exploded with the hashtag not just Noah. Parents from every corner of the country began to share photos of their children, some sick, some healthy, all holding NutriPure canisters. A silent uprising. Pixel by pixel. One tweet, shared 180,000 times, simply said, "You poisoned our babies. And now you'll hear our voices." FDA headquarters, Washington, D.C. Pressure mounted on federal agencies. Senators called for hearings. Consumer advocacy groups demanded a full audit of the baby formula industry. One senator said on record, "We regulate toy safety more strictly than what infants consume daily." That ends now. Back in Portland, Emily received a handwritten letter. It was from Kayla Sanders, the mother she'd met in the hospital weeks ago. Inside, along with a photo of her daughter hooked to and for, was a note: "You spoke up when I couldn't. Now I'll speak too. You're not fighting alone." Emily pressed the paper to her chest. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to cry, not from grief, but from something different. Resolve. It didn't begin with a march. There were no bullhorns, no chants. It began with a whisper, a mother's whisper, passed hand to hand, inbox to inbox, post to post, until it became something unstoppable. Portland, Oregon, Community Center basement. June 20, 2025. The folding chairs were mismatched. The coffee was stale. But the room was full. 30 women, 6 fathers, 4 strollers, 2 babies on feeding tubes. And in the center sat Emily Brooks. Not on a podium. Not behind a microphone. But holding a folder filled with names. She looked around and said what none of them had dared to say aloud until then. This is no longer about just one child. This is a public betrayal. And we're going to answer it with something bigger than one lawsuit. That night, the group formed a coalition. Mothers for Truth. Its mission: demand federal legislation mandating independent lab testing for all infant formula sold in the U.S. Enforce transparent labeling of all nutritional ingredients. Create a public database of manufacturer violations. They didn't have lobbyists. They had grief. And grief, when shared, becomes momentum. Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill. 3 weeks later, Senator Ellen Reed from Vermont introduced the Infant Nutrition Accountability Act. Citing directly the tragic death of Noah Brooks and the courage of mothers across the country who refused to be silent, the committee hearing streamed live. Millions watched as Emily Brooks, hair pinned back, blazer a size too large, stood before the panel and read her statement. No theatrics, just truth. My son didn't die in a war zone. He died in a nursery. Fed by my own hands. With something I believed was safe. I'm not here because I want revenge. I'm here because I want no one, to ever hold their child's body and wonder what they missed. There was no applause, just silence, and wet eyes across the aisle. Across the country, parents began posting photos outside supermarkets, holding signs. Baby bottle emoji, truth before profit. Baby bottle emoji, we read labels now. Baby bottle emoji, Mothers for Truth. Small bookstores hosted letter-writing events. Churches opened up discussion rooms. One Catholic parish in Chicago dedicated a mass to the children who trusted us, and the God who trusts us to protect them. Meanwhile, Vita Nova was crumbling. More employees stepped forward. A former junior chemist admitted she was told to dilute nutrient levels to cut costs. An internal memo revealed a warning sent to the executive board: we're one viral story away from exposure. Marketing emails were discovered referring to parents as buyers of belief, not science. Karen Flint, COO, resigned and fled to the Cayman Islands. She was arrested within 48 hours on an Interpol red notice. Emily received a message one evening. It was a short video. A young father, maybe 25, standing in his kitchen, holding a photo of his baby boy. The baby looked strong, smiling, holding a stuffed elephant. He lived, but barely. Because you spoke up in time. Thank you. She stared at the screen, whispering to herself, no, thank you, for fighting too. The next morning, Emily walked past Noah's room. It hadn't changed. She still couldn't bring herself to take down the mobile above his crib. But for the first time, she stepped inside. She opened the curtains and let the sunlight in. United States District Court, Western District of Washington, September 12, 2025, Day 1 of federal trial. The courthouse stood taller against the gray Seattle sky, swarmed with cameras, activists, and a line of parents holding baby photos like protest signs. A still sea of heartbreak. Inside courtroom 3B, the prosecution table was heavy with files. Not just legal documents, death certificates, hospital bills, nutrition reports, all whispering the same thing: this wasn't an accident. This was a choice. Emily Brooks sat 2 rows behind the government's legal team. She was no longer just a grieving mother. Today, she was a witness for the people of the United States. She wore navy blue. Simple makeup. No tears. Just eyes that had seen too much. At the defense table, Gregory Shaw, former CEO of Vita Nova Health Corporation, sat next to 3 high-powered attorneys. He no longer looked untouchable, no longer clean-shaven, just weathered. Still, he pleaded not guilty. Opening statement: prosecution, this case is not about one baby. It's about a system designed to deceive. About a corporation that marketed trust, sold poison, and then hid behind contracts and consultants. This case is about the weaponization of food. Week 1. Witnesses took the stand. A chemist testified, "We were told to water down core nutrients. Our samples were switched before inspection days." A logistics manager, "We shipped from unregulated facilities in Asia. Labels were printed in California to keep it looking domestic." An executive assistant, Mr. Shaw said, and I quote, "Mothers don't buy nutrition. They buy peace of mind." Week 2, the courtroom gasped as FBI forensic analysts played internal audio recordings. Shaw, voice captured on tape, "If there's backlash, we settle. These people can't afford lawsuits anyway." Flint, COO, "Label it organic immunity blend, they won't know the difference. Just make sure it smells like something herbal." The jury watched in silence. The judge's gavel hit like thunder. Emily's testimony, day 14. She walked to the witness stand. No script. No lawyer by her side. Just a folded photo of Noah in her palm. "I fed my son that formula every day, believing I was giving him life. But I was giving him something empty. Something built for marketing. Not for health." You didn't kill him with a gun. You killed him with lies in bold font and scientific words you never meant to be true. The courtroom didn't move. Even Shaw didn't blink. "This isn't just about me. It's about every parent who trusted you, and every child who will never grow up because of you." She stepped down. No applause. Just the sound of a mother reclaiming her voice. Week 3. The defense tried to fight back, claimed industry norms, claimed no direct link between formula and fatalities, claimed errors in third-party processing. But the mountain of evidence was immovable. Public health officials from the CDC testified. Independent labs confirmed, nutrient levels in NutriPure Advance were only 23% of the labeled claims. Some cans contained zero detectable DHA. Others had expired protein concentrates relabeled as organic. Final week, closing arguments. "You can't put a price on trust," Carla Dorsey told the jury. But Vita Nova did. They built a business model on deception. Scaled it. Funded it. Exported it, and profited from it. This is your moment to draw a line between capitalism and cruelty. Between marketing and murder. Verdict, October 9, 2025. After 11 hours of deliberation, Gregory Schur, guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, manslaughter, falsification of medical goods, and obstruction of federal inquiry. Karen Flint, guilty, in absentia. 3 senior staff, guilty. Maximum sentences were sought. Assets seized. Public apology ordered. And the company, dissolved by federal decree. Outside the courthouse, Emily didn't speak to cameras. She simply placed Noah's picture down on the concrete steps. Then looked up to the sky. For the first time, the weight in her chest shifted. Not gone, but lifted. Just a little. 6 months later. Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. The air outside was still sharp with winter. But inside the chamber, there was a warmth, born not from heat, but from conviction. The Infant Nutrition Accountability Act passed its final vote with bipartisan support. Effective immediately, all infant formula manufacturers must submit to independent quarterly lab testing. Mislabeling nutritional data would be treated as a federal crime. A new National Registry of Infant Product Safety Violations would go live that summer. At the heart of the announcement stood Senator Ellen Reed. And beside her, invited quietly, without press fanfare, was Emily Brooks. When the senator introduced her to speak, Emily hesitated, then stepped forward. No microphones. No rehearsed speech. She simply said, "This isn't about politics. This is about being able to look into your baby's eyes and know, without question, that you're giving them something safe." I wish I could say I fought for my son. But I didn't. I fought because of him. And now, we're fighting for everyone else's. Applause rose, not roaring, but respectful. Solemn. Like a prayer. Back in Portland, Emily lived quieter now. She had taken a part-time job at a local parenting center. She hosted free seminars on food safety. She read stories to infants whose mothers came just to feel less alone. Every Tuesday night, she still lit a small candle by Noah's photo. Sometimes she talked to him. Sometimes she sat in silence, but always, the flame stayed lit. One morning, she received a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a worn copy of Goodnight Moon, Noah's favorite book. Tucked between the pages was a note: "He won't be forgotten. You made sure of that. You gave the world light when it tried to live in shadows." Beneath the message was a signature: J. She smiled. She didn't know who J was. Maybe it didn't matter. Later that year, a mural was unveiled on the wall of a children's hospital in Austin, Texas. It showed dozens of mothers and fathers standing shoulder to shoulder, passing a glowing bottle of milk from hand to hand like a torch. At the center was a child's silhouette, smiling. Below it read, "Built on truth. Fed by love. Never again." Emily stood in front of it on a spring morning, a scarf wrapped loosely around her neck. She wasn't crying. Not this time. She closed her eyes. The wind caught her hair, and when she opened them again, she saw light. Not at the end of the tunnel, but around her, everywhere.
Fire 1. Trust is not a product to sell, it's a responsibility to protect. Parents believed in the promises printed on the can. They trusted the company, the brand, the labels, but that trust was exploited. Right finger lesson. When a company profits by abusing trust, it ceases to be business, it becomes a crime. Balance scale 2. The law must not stand apart from life, it must protect life. Without proper investigation, those fake milk cans would have continued to feed and fail thousands of babies. Right finger lesson. Legal systems must be strong enough not only to punish wrongdoers, but to prevent harm, especially in healthcare and food. Brain 3. Ordinary people can spark extraordinary change. Emily Brooks was a grieving mother. Not a lawyer or public figure, but with truth and love, she forced a system to face itself. Right finger lesson. Never underestimate the power of one person fighting for what's right. Puzzle piece 4. Silence enables injustice, speaking out begins transformation. Had Emily stayed silent, there would have been no trial, no law, no awareness. Right finger lesson. When one person dares to speak the truth, they give others permission to say, "Me too." Test tube 5. Transparency isn't optional, it's a duty. Infant formula is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. Every false label, every misleading claim can lead to real, irreversible harm. Right finger lesson. In industries tied to life and death, transparency is not negotiable. Red Heart 6. Justice is not only about punishment, it's about healing a community. Convicting criminals is one part, but creating new protections, new laws, and restoring hope, that's justice fully realized. Right finger lesson. Real justice happens when society steps out of the darkness, not just by punishing the guilty, but by protecting the innocent.